Hello, dear students. Welcome back to this session. We are reading chapter The Ailing Planet, the Green Movement's Role. So let's continue reading the chapter. We have covered up to the part where the author discusses about the four biological system, the forest, fisheries, grasslands, and croplands, that how these are being harmed by the activities of humans. And then how he talks about the various species of life, those who are facing extinction as a result of the destruction of the tropical forest. Then how the author talks about that the laws which are never respected in our country. He shares his concern over the rate of the forest, over the rate at which the forests are getting depleted from our country too. And in this regard, he gives an example, and he says that a 3-year study using satellites and aerial photography conducted by the United Nations warns that the environment has deteriorated so badly that it is critical in many of the 88 countries investigated. So, to justify the viewpoint, he talks about a research which was conducted by the United Nations. And according to that 3-year study, using satellites and aerial photography, which displayed that our environment has got so bad in 88 countries that it has reached a critical stage. And he says that there can be no doubt that the growth of world population is one of the strongest factors distorting the future of human society. Distorting means harming, deforming, disfiguring the future of human society. So he says that one of the strongest factors which is actually causing harm is the growing population. So, growth of world population at such a fast rate is one of the reasons behind the distortion of the future of mankind. The author gives example that it took mankind more than 1 million years to reach the first billion. That was the world population around the year 1800. By the year 1900, a second billion was added, and the 20th century has added another 3.7 billion. The present world population is estimated at 5.7 billion. Keep this in mind, student, that this data is provided according to the year 1994. And every 4 days, the world population increases by 1 million. So he says that it took more than 1 million years to reach first billion of population. But in the next 100 years, the population number increased by the next billion in the number. And if we see the present situation, the number has increased to a great extent. So the cases of the population that it is increasing by 1 million in every 4 days. So it is an alarming factor that how the world's population needs to be controlled. The author says that fertility falls as income rise, education spreads, and health improves. Thus, development is the best contraceptive. But development itself may not be possible if the present increase in number continues. So he says that how this fertility, the growth of population can be reduced. It reduces also as the income rise, education spreads, and health improves. So development is the best possible solution for overpopulation. It can help in reduction in the fertility and rise in income. And if we spread awareness, education through education, and there is improvement in the health of the people, it will definitely affect the growth of population. The rich get richer and the poor beget children, which condemn them to remain poor. But the reality is totally opposite to it. Rich people, the rich are becoming richer, and the poor they beget means give birth to children, which actually stops them, which actually uh, makes them to remain in such poor condition. Because the poor people they believe that the more member in the family means the more working hand, the more earning members in the family. But the reality is something else. It is not suggested that more children does not mean more workers, merely more people without work. But the reality is that it does not mean if there are more children, that means they would be the earning members of the family. But the situation is more people who are without work with empty stomach. It is not suggested that human beings be treated like cattle and compulsorily sterilized. Human beings cannot be treated like animals. Like animals are sometimes compulsorily sterilized so that they could not give birth to the young ones. But humans cannot be treated like them and cannot be sterilized by force. So, there is no alternative to voluntary family planning without introducing an element of coercion. Element of coercion means compulsion. The choice is really between control of population and perpetuation of poverty. So, to control the population, some element of force has to be put for family planning, but this cannot be successful. Humans, they have to choose between population control and keeping up with the poverty. We need to create a balance between these because we need to control population. So awareness is required, proper family planning is required, voluntary family planning is required, because and some element of coercion somewhere, some compulsion is also required, but to some extent compulsion cannot bring people for family planning. So voluntary family planning is also needed in this regard. The population of India is estimated to be 920 million today. Again, I would repeat it that this data is according to the year 1994. So, more than the entire population of Africa and South America put together. No one familiar with the conditions in India would doubt that the hope of the people would die in their hungry hutments unless population control is given topmost priority. Thus, the author he puts forward this fact that the rise in population is an alarming factor, and we need to control the population. And if the population is not controlled, most of the people would die in their huts with just a hope, because those people would die of hunger, poverty, and thus it is important that the population control, this fact should be given the priority. For the first time in human history, we see a transcending concern, the survival not just of people but of the planet. Now, when we talk of transcending concern, it refers to that a problem, a concern that existed for a long time and has passed down from one generation to another. So, it is for the first time we see this kind of problem which has existed for such a long time. And uh, with the passage of time, people are also now concerned about the survival of planet. So the environment, we have begun the survival not just of people but of planet, and we have begun to take a holistic view of the very basis of our existence, considering the fact that earth is also a living being. So, looking towards Earth as a holistic being, from the holistic view, from the ecological point of view, not just considering the Earth to be a machine. So, this shift in the point of view, it has actually brought a shift in the mankind's thought process, and thus because it has now become the very basis of our own existence. Because not only our existence is at threat, the existence of planet Earth has also come to a point, a verge of danger there. So we have now started to see our existence with a comprehensive view now. The emerging new world vision has ushered in the era of responsibility. So the environmental problem does not necessarily signal our demise, it is our passport for the future. So this solving environmental problems, it has become the passport to the future, and thus it should not be seen as a remark of our death. We should not consider this problem to be a signal of our death. We should consider it as a passport to the future, because if we solve the problem, the future generation, their future will also be bright then, because they would not be deprived of the resources which we are enjoying today. So it is a holistic view, an ecological view, seeing the world as an integrated whole rather than a dissociated collection of parts. So we should see the world as a whole and not as different parts, because collective efforts are required. It is not the problem just of India or Pakistan or America. We need to think about the world as a whole, as a single entity, and thus we should work together so that we can improve the condition of our environment. Industry has a most crucial role to play in this new era of responsibility. What a transformation would be effected if more businessmen shared the view of the chairman of DuPont, Mr. Edgar S. Woolard, who 5 years ago declared himself to be company's chief environmental officer. He said, "Our continued existence as a leading manufacturer requires that we excel in environmental performance." So, here in this regard, industry also has the crucial role to play. So, in the era of responsibility towards the environment, industries can play a major role. Chairman of DuPont Company, Mr. Woolard, he declared himself to be Chief Environmental Officer. Instead of calling himself as CEO, Chief Executive Officer, he used to call himself as Chief Environmental Officer. Such an attitude in other businessmen can create a great effect on the transformation of these ideologies. It can bring a great change in the point of view of people, so that all together can start working for the betterment of the environment. In the concluding paragraph, these the statements which are made are also very important. Of all the statements made by Margaret Thatcher during the years of her prime ministership, none has passed so decisively into the current coin of English usage as her felicitous words, "No generation has a free hold on this earth. All we have is a life tenancy with a full repairing lease." So Margaret Thatcher, she was the prime minister, and in one of her statements, she said that no human on this earth holds a permanent tenure, and we don't have the ownership of the lands here. It is not permanent in our life. We all have life possessions, and it is like a tenancy to us with a full repairing lease. We are like tenants on this earth, and thus, with the rights of tenancy, we need to also repair the damage that we have created on this earth. And thus, she makes the remarks that with the full repairing lease. In the words of Mr. Lester R. Brown, we have not inherited this earth from our forefathers, we have borrowed it from our children. Another important remark, that how it is not the fact that we have got all this earth in inheritance. No, we have not inherited this, rather, we have borrowed it from our children. We have borrowed it from our future generation, the coming generation. So when we borrow something, we have to return it in the same condition we have borrowed. So it is our duty that we should enhance the environment, the condition of the environment. We should work for the upliftment of the environment together, and we should not shirk our responsibilities. We should come together for the planet Earth. And this is where the chapter ends. Thus, we see that how this chapter, the it highlights the importance of the green movement, which has created a great significance, which has created a great difference in the world. The earth has been rendered as an ailing planet in the chapter, and all the principal biological systems are suffering because of this catastrophic depletion. So man in his greed has recklessly used all these precious sources, and this green movement has made human beings aware of the fact that the earth is a living organism. It has its own metabolic needs. So man must recognize the fact that he has not to deprive the future generation of the gifts of the nature. And thus, we should perform our roles, do our duties, work as a caretaker, as stewards towards the environment, towards the planet Earth. So, this is all about the chapter The Ailing Planet, the Green Movement's Role. Hope the chapter is clear to all. We will meet in the next session for the discussion of the question answers. Thank you, students.